Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Hello, all. My name is Graham Younger, and I'm the Georgia Director of Faith and Public Life. And I am truly happy to see you all here. I would imagine that this has been a whirlwind of a 30 or so hours for all of us. And so I, again, appreciate you taking the time to be here now. I imagine that whirlwind would have been even more hectic without the influence of faith leaders like the ones that we're about to hear from. On an election day where violence was predicted by many, they were on the ground, making sure that the values of dignity and responsibility could prevail yesterday. And I know that I am grateful and think that we owe a debt to the folks that spent so much time and use so many of their resources and their energy sort of in this moment. Um, the right to vote is just that. It's a right and it is sacred. And now, as we wait for election results to roll in, and as there is a spotlight on Georgia as the country waits for Georgia to count every single vote, I hope that we can take some time to listen to the stories of those folks who were on the ground and follow the guidance of our speakers. So I'm going to briefly let our speakers know when it'll be their turn to speak. They'll talk about their experiences working as people of faith and trying to help that voting process go as smoothly as possible. We'll hold questions for the end, or if you would like to go ahead and type them in the chat, that can be something that we try to get to, especially if you're able to direct those questions towards a specific speaker. So without making y'all wait any longer here, I'd like to let the Reverend Billy Honor start us off. Billy?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Graham. Thank you to Faith and Public Life for bringing us together. And thank you to the members of the press who are here. I know this is a busy time, as Graham said, so we appreciate you. My name is Billy Michael Honor. I'm the Director of Faith and Civic Engagement Organizing for the New Georgia Project. And essentially what I want to just talk about today is some reflections that I have as it relates to the faith leaders and faith communities who are part of our network. We have a network that stretches throughout a good part of the state in most of the major cities and many of the smaller towns across our state. And we help to try to organize those faith leaders and faith communities around an expanding democracy agenda. And so a time like this is near and dear to us. And over the last 18 hours, I've had a number of conversations with faith leaders from all over the state. And I think it's pretty clear that their primary concern is making sure that the will of the people in this election goes forth. That means making sure that whomever is sworn in as president or any other elected office is truly the leaders that the process chose, right? That's essentially what I've heard from faith leaders from across the spectrum, is that they want to make sure that the voting process gives us the leaders that the system and that the process chose. In the midst of this pandemic, where here in Georgia, 200,000 Georgians have lost their lives. 200,000 of our fellow Georgians have lost their lives. And of those of us who remain here alive, many of us have faced economic challenges, in many cases very severe. But despite all of that, 4.7 million Georgians came out to vote, or sent their vote, or dropped their vote off in the ballot. And if 4.7 million Georgians can do their civic duty, then in a time like this, election officials can honor them by doing their duty. And that duty is to make sure that every vote is counted, that every vote is counted. That's all that's being asked for here, is that right now, every vote is counted. I'm very happy that we've been on calls for most of the morning, and we have no indication that election officials are not living up to that duty. They are right now, as far as we can tell, making sure that the process goes forth fairly and as expeditiously as possible. But as I've been saying to people, it is more important that we get it right than that we get it fast. And so however long it takes, we will wait. And we hopefully as faith leaders will be commending people to patience while we wait on that process. Let me say finally that when we think about election day yesterday, we had poll chaplains all over the state, some of whom are on this call who you will get to hear, who are part of this press conference. And I'm just honored to be in their presence as I join them in this endeavor. And I am proud of what was able to be accomplished over the last several years in terms of making the voting process better, because the average of 20 minutes of voting time that people experienced yesterday was the result of a lot of advocacy by groups like Faith and Public Life, like our organization and many others. And so there were a lot of good things that happened yesterday. Let me say that right off. That's what we saw out there as poll chaplains. We saw efficient processes a lot of the time. We saw voters having a pleasant voting experience. I want to say that. But what we also saw was, unfortunately, harassment in some cases at some precincts, not all, of people who just came to do line warming, who simply came to try to help voters who might have to stand in these lines, and who were given misinformation about the legalities around their being able to exercise their right as nonpartisan citizens to come and pass out food and snacks. We will, in the coming days, be making sure that our complaint is made clear. And we have a multi-faith coalition of faith leaders who are going to join us in this effort because we got to make the system and the process better. And one of the ways we can do that is to make sure that faith leaders have every opportunity that that is available to them to care for voters in a nonpartisan way. And we will not be intimidated by the system. And we have to make sure that that demand is made known. And so we wanted to say that because it was definitely something that happened yesterday that left a sour taste in many of our faith leaders' mouths, in spite of all of the good that we saw. But I thank you for listening today. I thank you for the Multi-Faith Coalition that you get a chance to hear from, and for many of the individuals who are on this call. And know that I want to reiterate one more time that our goal is to make sure that the will of the people goes forth, and that those who get sworn into office are actually the ones who were chosen by the system and the people's process of voting. Period. End of story for us. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you, Billy, and for the work that you've been doing. And I especially appreciate you singling out some of the poll chaplains, and that's actually the next person that we'll have speak. Minister Austin, would you like to share some of your experiences?
Yes. So I am Minister Janice Austin. I am a second-year Master of Divinity student at Candler School of Theology, and was one of the people on a team of people that helped organize Candler students, ITC students, Mercer students, and Columbia students to be poll chaplains. So I volunteered at the C.T. Martin Natatorium and Rec Center, and I was there yesterday from 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., helping to monitor at our site specifically. There was a team of us from Candler and ITC and the New Georgia Project, some of which are also on the call. So our goal there yesterday was to serve as a spiritual presence and to really ease the process of voting in any way that we could. So we provided snacks and water to people. We helped monitor the activity, so made note of any suspicious activity, made note of any issues that people had. I know there was one man who showed up and he was told that he had already voted, even though he had not voted. So making sure that he got connected with the right people, and then also helping to welcome people and then following up on their experiences. So what was it like voting? What was the process like for you? Was it good? Was it fast? Was it easy? So as seminarians, we see this as part of our commitment to justice, specifically within my Candler community. It's one in which we understand faith alongside social justice, and to also ensure that people could vote with dignity. So upon getting there, we were working alongside many other organizations that were present, and the first issue we encountered was with the City of Atlanta Parks and Rec. So the manager at the site told us that we needed permission to give out food and was willing to call the police if we did not, I guess, pack up our snacks and pack up our water. So at that point, we put everything in my trunk, packed it all up, and Reverend of Honor actually helped us get permission so that we could stay there. However, there were many other organizations that were also there to provide snacks and water. And at that point, many of them were intimidated and they left for the day and took all their snacks and water with them. So that was one issue that we had to deal with. Another issue that happened alongside that issue dealt with Adra Call, who was the investigations area supervisor with the Secretary of State office, who informed us that we had to go beyond the 150 feet line to give out snacks and water to the public. And we were very clear that we did not have to do that because we are a nonpartisan organization. The snacks and water were open to the public. You did not have to vote to get these snacks and water. So also being able to, and having to assert our right within that space so that we can just provide something as simple as snacks, water. There was another organization, Stake Vote, that was providing breakfast and providing lunch. So doing whatever we could to assist people throughout this voting process. Even dealing with the issue of the 150 feet rule, the municipal clerk with the Atlanta City Council was there, who mentioned his concern as well, but was able to write a great report at the end about how there were no issues that took place, everything went well, so that was good. And also, in general, it was good that it was a quick and easy process for people. There were no long lines, people were able to get in, get out, go to work, and they were able to vote across the generations. So bringing in their children and their grandchildren. It was great to see the community come together. Specifically at my site, we had a lot of activity. So we had live performances, people's on stilts, great dancers. There was a food truck with the Atlanta Falcons, and some of the organizations that were there were like the NAACP of Atlanta, Movement for Black Lives. There were many more as well. But also knowing that the election day is just the beginning of this process, and know that we have a responsibility to hold the United States accountable to being the democracy that it claims to be, especially as faith leaders, and continuing to ensure that people's votes are counted. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for that testimony, and I appreciate any time we have the ability to see all of the sorts of different ways in which voter suppression can take root and what that can look like at the local level, at the polling place level. So I especially appreciate the talk of Atlanta, and I know that's where a lot of the focus is. I'd like to throw it now to Minister Siobhan Williams, who has been working primarily in Augusta and sort of the rural areas and counties surrounding that, to talk a little bit about her experiences here with the election.
Thank you, Graham, and everyone else that's already gone. I appreciate the work, and those that's to come, the hard work that everybody's been doing. I am Minister Siobhan Williams. I am based in the Augusta area of Georgia and work in many of the surrounding rural counties. I am the Georgia Organizing Ambassador for Faith and Public Life, and have really, truly enjoyed the work that we've been doing over this past year leading up to the election, including yesterday. And I enjoy it because I know I live in a democracy, a great democracy that value is rooted in the fact that everyone is valuable, everyone is created equal, and we're endowed with certain inalienable rights. And those rights of life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness is something that everybody is supposed to be able to enjoy. I know the cornerstone of our democracy, though, is the right to vote. And because we have a right to life, we have the right to protect that life in the middle of a pandemic while we're trying to also vote. That being said, we also have the right to have our vote counted. I'm thankful that for all the people that has pressed on, that's persevered, that realized the value in that right and pushed forward during the pandemic and went ahead and voted, whether it was by absentee ballot, early in person, or on election day, because they realized that their voice counted. And so they made sure they went and let their voice be heard at the polls. But one of the things that was concerning while we were working in the various rural counties, we had to encourage, we had to educate potential voters, even about the election process, even about how to be safe, because voter suppression is real. We were in counties like Jefferson County, Hancock County, Warren County, where people of color had problems even accessing the internet, having computers to even be able to request the absentee ballot so that they can let their voice be heard and protect their life at the same time. So while we help them press through these difficulties, now they're sitting and wondering, will my vote count? Will my vote be counted? One particular first-time voter, very proud of her decision to become a first-time voter at the age of 61, pressed through, even though she's had several medical challenges during the pandemic, to include having to have surgery to fix an aneurysm in her brain, to have surgery and have part of her colon removed and walking around with a bag, but she wanted to press through, and we helped her. We took internet, we took computer, helped her be able to request an absentee ballot, helped her get that ballot mailed in, and showed her the process of what to do. And she just sitting down, want to know, will my vote be counted? Because she hear things like, let's stop the count, let's call the election before everybody's vote counted. So we want to make sure here, the day after the election day, where a record number of people have had to vote by absentee ballot, that their vote is counted. We wait patiently. One of the cornerstones of my Christian faith is the fruit of the Spirit in Galatians. And we know it starts off with love, joy, peace, and patience. And so while we peacefully wait and while we patiently wait for every vote to be counted, we're going to call on all the local officials. We're going to call on our Secretary of State to make sure we don't call an election before every vote is counted. Make sure we don't prematurely call a winner or certify a vote when there's still ballots still out there. We have those that had to vote by absentee ballot because of the pandemic. We have our service people and those serving abroad that had to mail in their votes and has gotten hung up with the postal system, and they have a right to have their voice spoken to. So we're asking right now, while we patiently wait, while we rely on those values of our faith and wait, make sure before elections are certified and winners are declared, that every vote is counted. That's a fundamental right that we all have. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, and thank you, Siobhan, for that, and for all the work that you've been doing for over a year, or more than that, for years and cycles of elections now. From here, we'll go a little bit further south. Reverend Nelson, would you like to talk a little bit about your experiences down in Albany?
Yes, thank you, Graham, and just thank you to all those who are on and for the opportunity to speak about what happened. Of course, I'm down here in Albany, Georgia, pastor here, and happy to be on here with my fellow counterpart, Pastor Donnie Green. And so we know we've been out here doing a lot of work for the past few weeks, ever since early voting. We're out there with a number of organizations who were coming together to pass out food and drinks and whatnot. And so we continued to do that on yesterday. And, initially we came together early in the morning, about 6 in the morning. We got on a call, we prayed together, and we had everything figured out to where we would go to our different precincts and observe basically what was going on. We had people designate for each precinct, and just to kind of take notes and see what's going on. And we did find out some things. I'll just say this though, overall, it was a very invigorating day. I spent the entire day just driving back and forth. I literally had my daughter with me, going down the street, like telling people to vote and, passed out stuff and just make sure people know where their polling location was. Some people didn't know. Some people weren't going to vote, and we challenged them to actually make a, go vote. I actually drove some people to the polls, and we had, a lot of buses and stuff. So it was just a really big day. We're just out there really pushing. We had the Pastors Ministers Coalition out here standing on the corner for a number of hours, holding up signs, telling people to vote. And so the energy was just really high, just really great here in Albany. It was just good to see everyone, no matter who they were, having the opportunity to go vote and wanting to go vote. Many people saying that they had vote or they were at least planning to do it before the end of the day. So that was really awesome. But there were a few issues that we did note, and definitely let you guys know about those things. At least in 6 of the precincts, there were some issues with some of the machines. Some machines weren't working, but in some cases, there was an issue with people saying the machines telling people that they had already voted. And so this was something that I think some of the counties knew would happen, because a lot of people either had been sent an absentee ballot or it was automatically sent to them. They didn't request it or whatever, and they hadn't used it, and they didn't know they had been sent one. And so the poll workers should have known to just press the prompt saying no, and they would have been able to actually override that and then go ahead and vote. And so that actually wasn't figured out until later in the day. And so some people were turned away. Some people stayed and fought and actually were able to vote. But luckily we had some inside knowledge. Some people who were kind of working with us, who actually were poll workers, were writing down the names and numbers and actually called them back. And those people did come back actually, and actually were able to vote. And so that was, kind of troubling, but also good that some of those people came back. We don't know how many people were lost in that issue that happened early that morning. Also, people were given provisional ballots. Some people were given provisional ballots, but they were giving no tracking information to follow up with them, which was a problem. And later on, we actually overheard the elections director saying that provisional ballots wouldn't be counted. And the fact that was said, is just totally inappropriate and should never been. I mean, it's illegal to, for that to be even been said. So that was troubling to hear. Also, there were issues with, actually having the exact name that were maybe different. Maybe some people had different names that were wrong per se, and so there was a lot of trouble being given to people to vote. There was one particular issue with a girl named Ayana, who was she was a first-time voter, and Ayana was really excited about voting. She came at 8 a.m. to vote, but there was some trouble with her name, or something was going on, and she had to go back and forth to get things rectified, and finally was able to vote at 1:20 that afternoon. So we're happy she was able to vote, but she had to go through a lot of things that we felt just didn't need to actually take place. There were situations where people were trying to vote. They were trying to find their name. They couldn't find it. They had to search multiple times, and they finally found their name. But if it hadn't been for, the persistence of some people who actually were there, some of the workers were actually kind of rude. We're saying, well, I just can't find it. Someone else had to step in to actually help in some of those situations. So that was troubling to see, because we kept hearing that poll managers were giving false information. They had attitudes. They were taking things to another level that they didn't need to go to that level. And really, people who are first-time voters had experienced those things probably would have been turned away just because the environment was kind of charged. And that was from the people who were actually, supposed to be the workers, So, and lastly, they reported that there were some issues where there were not enough surge protectors. So that means some of the machines couldn't be used. There were a limited number of poll pads, and some scanners were broken. So these are things that we actually had, of course, forethought and foresaw. And so we had sent a letter. Some of y'all know the issue that happened here, where the police got called on us as well. And we were, called on us actually by the elections coalition. And, elections board called the police on us. We're out there just giving water and snacks. But there was a lady who had pointed a gun at us, and nothing was done to her until later on. So we have been dealing with this thing, this past few weeks with them, filed a complaint with the county and with the elections board, and they told us they would give us a response back. Had not given us a response back till this date. We're still pressing about that. But within that request we asked them, you know, did they have enough surge protectors? Did they have enough, you know, were there, you know, what would happen if this took place? You know, these crucial questions that we wanted to know, were there enough workers? And these things were not, obviously didn't seem like they were actually followed up on, and they didn't give us a response. So, you know, just in closing, I'll just say that, you know, we're still going to be pressing on these issues, but right now the biggest thing is just making sure that every single vote is counted, and making sure that we continue the process, that we actually live out the actual reality of who we are as Americans, that this is a democracy, and that every single vote does count. You know, it's interesting. I'm making an intro for saying this, but I'm gonna say, y'all, you know, those of you who don't know me, but those of you who do know me are gonna know this is what I'd be saying. But we get a lot of flack for saying Black Lives Matter, you know, and everybody counters that by saying all lives matter. Well, right now, let's go ahead and flip that and say then all votes matter. If we want to really believe that all lives matter, every single vote counts. Come on now, make sure we get every single vote counted, because it doesn't matter the time it's going to take. We need to make sure every single vote is going to be counted.
There we go. I think we have a new theme. I think we have a new mantra for this particular Zoom call. It's all votes matter now. We will see that through to the end here. Sticking around in Albany, Reverend Dr. Green, would you like to share a few words with us?
I just want to say thank you, Mr. Graham. Thank Siobhan was trying to be a little modest, but she's all the way up in North Georgia, and I'm all the way down in South Georgia. But she's working everywhere. I believe everybody knows the work that she does. But Pastor Nelson, he covered a lot of areas. I had the privilege of changing our method of reaching people. The message stays the same, but we have to change our method. You know, sometimes you can't sit around and just wait for somebody to give you the go and make things happen. You have to change your method. The message stays the same. Reaching people where they can be reached. And I had the privilege to change my method. I had the chance to watch the polls and assist on the polls and going in and out. I had firsthand experience interacting with people and encouraging people when they was ready to give up and throw in the towel from the long waits in the line. I had the opportunity to entertain them, to let them know that you done came this far, why turn around now? Because there was a lot of people on the first day of early voting in Albany, they was ready to give up because of the long, long lines. But around about the last week, the system, as Pastor Nelson was talking about, the system had begun to speed up because, you know, people was complaining, and I was telling the people, hey, text your mayor, text the city manager, text the person that is running the system, and tell them, hey, instead of that one set up system trying to run a whole city, why don't we just open the civic center and set up about 3 different areas, and then you run people through, and you won't suppress the people by having them out in the element, the sun in the beginning, and all of a sudden it started getting cooler. So I mean, it was a great success for me because working with faith in public life, and coming out of an organization that is actually sometimes hands-on, but now you're hands-on and hands-off. I had the opportunity to motivate people when they go inside the doors, make sure that when you touch those doors, try not to touch those doors. Let us open the doors for you. When you go on the inside, sanitize yourself, going in, sanitize yourself, coming out, because it's important. I want to see y'all again next year, we have a runoff. I want y'all to come back for the runoff. So like I said, the message is still the same, but we got to change our method. I'm just on last night, I worked down to the wee hours. I started out in the wee hours posting signs and taking people to the poll, but I believe the icing went on top of the cake last night. I have been working with some convicted felons who had didn't think that they was worthy enough. They didn't think they was worthy enough to vote. I mean, and I took them at the last 30 minutes left last night, and they was able to vote. And that was a very emotional part, basically saying what my granddaddy used to say: if I can help somebody as I pass along the way, then my living won't be in vain. That was affirmation on the work that all of us have done. I just want to relay this to my brothers and my sisters. And I love that young lady that came up, Sister Austin, the minister. I love to see young people working in this kingdom, because the kingdom suffers violence, but how we gonna get it back? We gotta take it back by force. You can't be, like my grandmother would say, you can't be scared. You can't be scared. You can't be scared of this thing. God has not given us the spirit of fear, but he has given us a sound mind. So we got to use that greater that he put on the inside of us to do his greater works. It's not about us, but it's all about the kingdom of God. I got to continue to work while it's still day, because after a while, there won't be no daylight for me. And I just want to send a shout out to a lady over in Albany. She opened her barbershop up. Her name is Miss Helen Young. Helen's Barbershop. She opened up a democratic place where we can launch. It was a launching pad where we gathered all the posters and all the material that we needed to try to cover Southwest Georgia, because so many areas was not covered. And Siobhan kind of pushed me in that area. And I thank God for her pushing me in that area to make sure that that happened. Also, we made up some sample ballots along with Black Lives Matters. Demetrius Young is Helen Young's nephew, who is a part of the commission board there in Albany. But they made up some little sample ballots where when we're talking to the people in the line, they can look at the candidates. So when they get in there, they won't have no doubt about who they're gonna vote for when they get on the inside. But every now and then, you're always gonna have somebody that's gonna stick their head up and want to cause chaos, wants to cause division, they want to cause problems, whether they're Black, whether they're white. But I thank God for being able to be there and try to diffuse that situation, taking them off to the side and say, it ain't worth that. But I commend everyone who's here today on the work that you have done. And as we get ready for the upcoming with the runoff and stuff, hey, this race ain't over. As we speak, our feet need to be on the ground running. So we don't need to wait too late. We need to get ahead of everybody. We can't wait to get the bumper stickers and put them on the bumper 2 days before the election. We need to get the bumper stickers and put them on there right about now. So I thank y'all for giving me an opportunity to be a part of this organization, being a part of Graham, Faith in Public Life. It has been an honor to serve. Thank you, and God bless you.
Yes, Dr. Green, thank you so much for that word and for all the work that you've been doing. I think just about every time that I've called you, you are in your truck taking voters one place or another. So I appreciate you taking the time for us this afternoon. And so our last speaker here, we're going to go down to Savannah to hear a little bit of the perspective there from the coast. Guillermo, would you like to finish us off here?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me? I see now, it's great. Thank you, Mr. Younger and Minister Williams, for the invitation to speak alongside all these distinguished pastors and community leaders. My name is Guillermo Arboleda. I'm the rector of St. Matthew's Episcopal Church in Savannah and the missioner for racial reconciliation and healing in the Episcopal Diocese of Georgia. Big mouthful of a title there. But trying to do some work around making sure that people have their rights protected. Today is an uncertain day. We are accustomed to waking up on the Wednesday after Election Day knowing all the results. But that's not the case here in 2020. We're waiting for the democratic processes of our nation to work themselves out. Millions of people cast ballots in this election, and many of them are still being tabulated. It's just too early to give firm results on many of these races. But I have not been asked to speak as a political pundit. I'm here to stand alongside these, my brothers and sisters, to assert that all human beings are created in the image of God. As a Christian, I believe that all people have inherent dignity and worth. All people are worthy of fair and equal treatment under the law, and our governments have a moral responsibility to protect the rights of every person in this land. Chief among those rights is the right to vote, and to have those votes counted accurately and fairly. At this stage in the process, the way I see it, as moral leaders in the state of Georgia, we have two primary responsibilities. First, we're going to ask Georgians to take a deep breath. Be patient. The results of this election will not be certain for a little while longer. Could be days, could be weeks. Just got to take our time. Don't listen to any candidate who claims premature victory, and instead pay attention to reliable news sources and the election officials in each county and state. There is no need to rush this process, even if it makes us feel anxious or uncomfortable to do so. We just got to hold on. We must instead focus on conducting the election process fairly, thoroughly, and accurately, which leads to our second responsibility. We faith leaders, along with all people of goodwill, must do all in our power to hold our elected and appointed officials accountable to the rule of law and to a high moral standard. The stories in the Bible frequently remind us that people in power rarely volunteer to use their power for the common good. They often must be pushed to do so. They need prophetic voices from the community to hold them to their word, to hold them to account. So we must call upon election officials to do what they are legally required to do what they have sworn to do, namely to count every vote. As we look further ahead, we will need to band together to eliminate all whiffs of voter suppression and intimidation. Some of them my colleagues on the call have already named. Locally, I would like to thank the Secretary of State's Voter Education Office for helping St. Matthew's Church to register voters and to educate the Savannah community on the voting process in the months leading up to this election. And in my limited experience as a poll chaplain yesterday afternoon, polling places in Savannah were generally accessible and free from foul actors. So for that, we thank Chatham County election officials and the residents of our city. Nevertheless, the process is still confusing and overly complicated for many people. Lots of voters were unclear about their basic voting rights or which polling place is theirs to vote in. Something as simple as where to go to make sure that vote counts. And the fact that you got to drive somewhere and then get turned around to go somewhere else can discourage somebody from voting altogether. We could change a law, our state could, and make all that go away, but we haven't. Without a poll chaplain or somebody to shepherd people through that process, some may not have been able to complete their vote as intended. So we, the people, need to ensure that voting rights are expanded and protected by members of all political parties in every political office. That's the long-term work. But today we have some short-term goals. Today, we again call on every elected official to make every vote count by counting every vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend. I appreciate those words, and they're good ones to think about as we move forward, and as we have another election here in Georgia on January 5th with new dates that people are less familiar with, where we're going to have to do work to make sure that folks are comfortable with them. That is all that we have scheduled here in terms of speakers. I would like to open up the floor for questions. If anyone has anything, I didn't see anything in the chat, but you're certainly welcome to unmute yourself quickly here and ask any questions to our panelists here. I'll give folks just a couple more minutes in case that we've missed someone. But again, thank you to everyone who spoke today, both for speaking today and for the work that you have done in the weeks and months and years, and in a lot of cases, leading up to this. Um, and as we sort of find ourselves on the precipice of Georgia becoming a much more interesting state, one that is not taken for granted. And I think especially in this moment, as again the eyes of a lot of the nation are looking towards Georgia as one of the places that we're going to have to be interested in, not just every 4 years, but every 2 years and every year in the local and municipal elections as well. That kind of shift doesn't happen without the work of people like those people on this call, the folks that are speaking and the folks that are listening in, and the folks that care very deeply about the moral imperative for us to vote and for our representatives to truly represent the people who populate this state. Um, so if there is no one else, I will let everyone go. Please feel free to contact me or any of our speakers if you have any other questions or any other ways that we can be helpful for you. But thank you, and hopefully you get to have a little bit of rest now, as again we gear up to do this again in a couple of months here. Thank you to everyone for coming.
Y'all get some sleep.